In this video, I'll demonstrate how to create a summary table using the survey data that I collected on the impact of email. A summary table, also referred to as a pivot table, is used to compute summary statistics of a larger dataset. Creating summary tables is another way to use computational tools to look more closely at your data to help identify trends and patterns. To get started, I'll open the cleaned up version of my survey responses based on the impact of email in Google Sheets. There are a couple ways to approach creating a summary table. One is that you can start with a data-driven question that you want to answer, something like, how do people perceive the impact of email by age? Or is there a difference between how younger people perceive the impact of email versus how older people perceive it? And from these questions, you would determine what calculations are needed. Another approach is to start experimenting by picking a category to group in rows and then pick a second one to display as values with calculated statistics like count and average. This will help you find interesting data points if you don't know exactly where to begin. So I'll use this second approach for this demo since I'm not exactly sure what question I want to answer. I just want to start experimenting to get a better feel for my data set. Before I start creating my summary table, I'm going to change the column headings to be a little simpler. This will be helpful when I start selecting rows and values to summarize. Timestamp is simple enough, but I'm going to change how old are you to age. I'll change this one to gender, this one to awareness, this one to impact on society, this one to opinion, this one to personal impact, and this one to impact description. And this one can remain impact standardized. To create a summary table or pivot table in Google Sheets, we need to bring up the pivot table editor. To do this, I'll go to Insert, Pivot Table, and I'll create it on a new sheet. You might notice that there are some suggested pivot tables that you can look into, but these won't necessarily be useful or meaningful. So it's worth exploring these options, but you'll need to evaluate each one to see if it's useful to you. To add a row category, I'll click the Add button next to Rows in the editor. Once I click the Add button, I can view and select the available options. Notice that these options exactly reflect the column headings that we just changed in the previous step. I'll select Impact on Society, which is a linear scale question, which means the responses will range from 1 to 5. Note that only the numbers 4 and 5 appear, which means there were no responses for 1, 2, or 3. For our value, let's count the number of responses for each rating. To do this, I'll click Add next to Values and choose the same question, Impact on Society. By default, it will sum the numerical responses, but this doesn't mean much to us. Instead, I'll change the Summarize By to Count, and now it shows that of my 25 responses, 17 people chose 5 or high impact on the scale, and 8 people chose 4 on the scale, which is slightly lower, but still a significant impact. From this summary table, I can conclude that most survey respondents think that email has had a significantly high impact on society, and that no respondents think email has had a low impact. Let's dig in a little more. This time, I'd like to see the societal impact broken down by gender. To do this, I'll add a column and select gender. Now you can see the societal impact responses broken down by male and female. From this summary table, we can see that males and females were pretty consistent with how they responded to this question, with no major differences between the groups. We can also see that there were more females who took the survey than males. Summary tables can be good visualizations on their own and can be especially useful when creating charts and other visualizations.